difference between Web 2 versus Web 3 marketing and how we can apply Web 2 strategies that have worked for us in the past or we've seen work in the past to Web 3. So I'm going to ask you to share a mic. We only have 4 for the stage. And do your best not to pull out any switchblades on stage. There's a little bit of competition between some of our panelists today for market share. But yeah, go ahead and tell us. Let's start from the other end. Brenda, what have you seen work from Web 2 to Web 3?
No. Oh, there we go. Difference between Web 2 and Web 3 marketing? Is that what we're discussing here? Yeah?
Yeah. What works and what doesn't?
What works and what doesn't? Let me think. So when I look back into marketing in Web 2, it's this is our product, this is what we do, and if you like it, that's great. Maybe send us a tweet about it or send us a note or something. But it's very a one-way interaction. The way I see Web 3 is that it gives you the opportunity to actually let that audience engage more with what you're doing and have that audience become part of the community. With things like DAO, you can have that audience actually own a piece of your community. So giving you that opportunity to really not only market, but build that community with your marketing and giving that community a voice, which I think is a much more authentic way of marketing and building your brand.
That's awesome. So more of a conversation, less of a talking at a group.
Exactly.
Phenomenal. And Jake, what are you seeing by way of Web 2 versus Web 3?
Am I good? There we go. How's it going, everybody? One big difference that I see between Web 2 and Web 3 is that I get to actually meet you guys. There's a much smaller community and a much more welcoming crowd for you to actually get to know, and it's been an absolute pleasure. And one thing that I have noticed that's a big difference between Web 2 and Web 3 marketing is the bots. There's bots all over Web 3, and you should really want to try to squash that. And don't worry, most of us have got your back.
Awesome. Okay, so basically it's a love-hate relationship with bots, but they're just the reality, is what I'm hearing. I'm curious, Mai. Let's synthesize a little bit. We've heard about kind of the old way with Web 2 and the one way, not really a conversation. Bots, I think, add to the noise there, the chatter. In your experience, what's the answer there? Because I think one problem exacerbates the other.
I think the beauty of marketing is that there's not one answer, right? Even for this panel, it's called marketing the proper way. I don't think there's one proper way for everybody, because I feel the most important thing in marketing, no matter it's Web 2 or Web 3, the approach is the same, because you are marketing to human beings. Human psychology stays the same. People are motivated by values like monetary values, intrinsic excitement. So you gotta think what really can excite and resonate with your target audience. So I think the target audience approach does not change, but there's some tactics definitely are very different in Web 2 and Web 3. For example, in Web 2, we've seen marketing have matured into a performance marketing approach. You have a lot of your marketing, your demographic data. But in Web 3, right now, we've only seen more campaign approach. You do an FT job, you do a product launch, so it's very campaign focused. So that's what I think are some of the biggest difference between Web 2 and Web 3.
Awesome, yeah, great. And you mind handing that mic to Mayur?
Yes.
Thank you. There's all fantastic points. I think, like you said, there are differences, but a lot of similarities. But I think foundationally, the one big difference I see is, the demand in the market for Web3 or underlying blockchain and technology doesn't exist yet, not at scale. So as marketers, we just can't go and assume that the world gets it. I think the world is still searching for the problem that this technology has a potential to solve. So which means that marketing has to go back to the basics and have a lot of empathy and focus on education on what value does it really bring to the person walking down the street, and that's the shape that marketing has to take.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's very, very David Ogilvy of you to talk about that empathy. That's great. Yeah, great points all. Let's talk a little bit about some of the go-to-market strategies in Web3. What have you seen that has worked for you by way of tapping into that empathy and helping your audience to understand a little better that empathy and understanding first approach? What are you finding by way of value-driven marketing and an incentive that's working? What are you seeing to cut through the the bot chatter, and what are you seeing to make sure that the conversation is really happening and communities are really being built? So let's build on it a little bit. Maybe tell us a little bit about some wins that you've had with your firm, with your approaches, but what's working?
All right. So, well, the company that that I'm one of the co-founders of Award Pool. One of the things that we do is help build community with gamified actions. So when we first launched our product a few years ago, the first thing that we did was launch a bunch of campaigns ourselves. You know, you're going to launch a marketing product, you might as well use your own product to market, right? And so we ran a bunch of campaigns, and the ones that worked the most were the ones where we were legitimately asking people to share things that mattered to them. We did one around green strategy. So we asked people to share what they do at home to go green. We ran one during International Women's Day. For that entire month, we celebrated women, and we asked people to come out and share their thoughts on different women in the space and what they're doing. And I always, one of the lines that I always say to people is when someone's willing to share a picture of their grandmother to my site and say, this is the woman that I admire, then I know I've actually reached a deeper level with that audience. And I think that's something that we've been able to do with our tool and with Web3 is to truly make that connection. And similar to what I said before, I think if you can truly make a connection with somebody, then you've actually marketed to them in a legitimate and authentic way. That's
awesome. I want applause for Grandma there. Seriously, that's amazing. I'm not even joking. If y'all feel like you can clap at 11 a.m., they call it the alpha stage for a reason, and Grandma's got all the alpha. So share Grandma's photo. That's phenomenal. Great. And Jake, what do you see as a go-to-market strategy for Web3 marketing?
Definitely persistence and just outreach to people. You don't have to be outreaching to the richest, most famous people in the world. Every single person that you see, they are more than just a potential customer. They are more than just anything. They can be your friend, and that will build your community. You have to look at everybody as if they are your equals. You go and you reply to many different people. This has worked for me in many ways. I myself have amassed over 500,000 followers by just going absolutely, persistent at messaging and replying to just random people that I see on the internet.
Awesome. Okay, so keep at it then.
So the question is that how is your firm or your company is also doing go-to-market strategies? To give a little bit context, so Web3 Ops, what we do is that we provide key management solutions to users. So instead of asking users to connect their wallet using C phrases, we provide users with the possibility they can use their Gmails, their Facebook to log in. So we basically connect Web 2 to Web 3. So in terms of target audience, we have a bigger audience to discuss and to target. And also, key management is not an easy solution or easy concept to explain to everyone. So it adds an extra layer into marketing. So like Maura was saying, content is very important for us. But what kind of a content? So we definitely have to layer on educational content. So for us, the go-to-market strategy, adding educational content and be consistent to educate the Web 2 and Web 3 audience is very important for us. And also, I think we have to do a good job in determining your target audience, but segmenting them, right? Because not everybody cares about the same thing. Maybe Web 2 users, they care about the simplicity, the user experience, but for your Web 3 community, your developers, they will care more about what is solution will help their protocols to build to solve other people's problems. So I think that's very important to determine and segment your target audience and also think about what will resonate with them.
Yeah, phenomenal. Yeah, end users versus developers. Marketing is vastly different. Mayur, what's the go-to-market strategy?
So, at Kraken, we are one of the largest and the oldest exchanges out there. And interestingly, marketing is relatively newer muscle at Kraken. All our growth in the first 11 years has come on the backing of a tremendous product, being very honest and authentic, committed to our mission. So we've established marketing at scale as of almost 12, 18 months back. And for us, very much like everybody said, it's targeting two cohorts of audiences, one who are already in it, which is perhaps 200, 250 million people in crypto. So you want to engage very deeply with them where they are, which is the Discords and the Reddits of the world. And they want to look at platforms that they can trust, that are investing in innovation, future products. So it's very intertwined and very advanced. But the massive growth and the global adoption of crypto will come when we are able to engage with the fence sitters. So with them, the conversation is a lot more about the problems that DeFi and crypto and blockchain is trying to solve, the challenges of TradFi, for example, and that's where we are leaning on content, a lot of education, and gradually, as the market evolves, invest in more top of funnel as well.
Got it. Okay, I'm hearing a lot about like onboarding, essentially. Really, as early as you can. I'm hearing user onboarding. Really, between the lines, I think. Phenomenal. Let's talk a little bit about how we provide the best onboarding experience to Web2 users and acquire the next billion users in Web3. I mean, that's a big goal. Heavy weight on our shoulders, but what is a way forward?
What is the way forward? So I know the next question. So I'm going to, and we've been talking about that quite a bit here. So I'm going to actually use that as what we need to move forward, and that's where everyone's talking about content and education, as Mai said. And I think that's what's most important, because there's a lot, none of us really got into Web 2 until it kind of reached that area where we understood it and we trusted it. So it's that same space. When we talk, a lot of our clients have absolutely no idea what Web3 is. And so what we built at Award Pool and how we pitch Award Pool and the content that we offer is migrating not just our client, but the customers of our clients, because they're the ones that are going to come in and they're going to use this tool and they're going to sort of start to understand the Web3 space. So I really think that when you're thinking about education and content, whether that comes in video, whether that comes in, I myself, I'm a writer, so we have a lot of content, written content that helps support and kind of guide you through from Web 2 to Web 3. And I also think when you're thinking about building and what you're building, you need to think about how a lot of those users coming on are coming on as Web 2 users, and they want to try your product and they want to get into space, but they don't really know how. So you need to, when you're thinking about your marketing strategy and your content strategy, you need to consider that part of what you're building is, okay, all these great people are going to come in, they might want to try my protocol, but you know what, a lot of people might not even know what that means. So you need to somehow create that flow from Web 2 to Web 3 for not only the users coming in to use your product, but then the users of their product. So it's the two-stage.
Got it. Okay, so you're almost turning yourself into like a private label, right, or a white label.
We are white label.
Yeah. Well, I think what I'm hearing is even if you know that there's going to be any future use or onboarding, this is a hurdle that you have to foresee, right? You have to look that far down the road.
You can onboard the Web 3. Everybody here gets it. Everybody here loves it. We're here because it means something to us. But what you're building, you need to consider that your clients might not, right?
Yeah, phenomenal. Yeah, I can say so day job. I mentioned I work in marketing as well. So we do interact with all of your products, and we do have to make those recommendations. So yeah, thank you on their behalf. Jake, what do you got by way of a way forward, providing that onboarding experience to Web 2 users specifically? This is our avatar.
It's simple like this. You just got to try to keep it fun and keep it kind. Like, a lot of people, my voice just cracked, but a lot of people are only coming into Web3 because they see things like Dcentral. Look around you. This looks incredible. Who would not want to come to something like this, vibing in Miami? That's definitely huge. Another thing is just the content that's being put out is very big whenever it comes to bridging the gap. Like us at Genzio, we're actually logged into accounts like the Dcentral Twitter, things like that. We try to keep the content as like fun and engaging as we possibly can, so that way both Web 2 and Web 3 users can go, wow, I really like the space. I want to join that space. This is going to be my future.
Awesome.
Yeah, so regarding that question, I think going back to like every project and every protocol is different, right? For like you guys like Kraken, like Exchange, you guys may need next billion of users, but for some other protocols, they may not need. So that's how I will look at a question as well. But I have to show our company a little bit because we are literally onboarding users. So like I was mentioning earlier, what we do is that instead of asking people to use C phrases, which is a troublesome, user experiences, we just ask user to use something they're familiar, they use every day. For example, they can use their Facebook login, they can use their Gmails to log in. So I think the methodology or the mindset here is that in order to onboard the next billion users Web 2, what you have to do is provide a familiar user interface for them. So I think the best way to describe it is that you provide a Web 2 front-end experience, but you build on the Web 3 back-end. Yeah, so I think that's extremely important.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm having flashbacks to Facebook crossing its first billion users and how the UI was a big part of that. Billion users is not a trivial feat. So, yeah, no, great points. Great points.
The billion users is a big milestone for everybody, and regardless of one platform needing the billion, I think the industry needs the next billion to drive the momentum and the global adoption of crypto. But I feel one of the key parts that are still missing a little bit in that global adoption, even though we've been in for more than a decade now, is the current folks who are in it, which is this community here and a few 100 million outside, for them to become advocates, for the barriers to go down, for the taxonomy and the language to get humanized a lot more, because right now it feels we are on an island talking our own language and the world is wondering, what the heck are you guys talking about? What are you building and what problems you're solving? So one, we all have to become the advocates and sharing human user stories of the impact crypto has had on people's lives. What was happening in Canada, what's happening in Ukraine, or in countries like Sri Lanka where there's economic collapse. So how do we talk about opportunities and real life impact on people's lives, and that becoming the biggest story to bring the next 100 million and so on. And then no question, technologically, how do we remove friction from that more technical onboarding? But I think in order for people to come that far, there's a lot more we have to do in humanizing crypto.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Of course, yeah. You guys, we can totally riff on this point. It's a big one, right?
Yeah, because I think adding on to Maura's point, I think we need more marketers. Since you guys are interested in Web3 marketing, we need more Web2 marketers to enter the field of Web3 and to try to explain or do the marketing the proper way or the Web2 way to onboard the next billion users. And also, I totally agree with a lot of the terms and technology are very difficult to explain. So I think what we do is that we should test the mission statement. So always use this method. Imagine you're explaining your product to a 10-year-old and test it out. So I think that would be a good approach to see if it can resonate with the mass media or mass audience. Yeah.
I can say spending some time around the crypto degens, if you pretend like your avatar is 10 years old in their investing sensibility, half the time you're right. So that's great. There's no degens in the audience, are there? Okay. Whew, we're clear. But awesome. Let's talk about content then. I mean, we've been kind of dancing around it. It's like we're swimming in it, right? It's like asking a fish, how's the water? Well, how's the content? Is it still king? Rather than a yes/no answer, let's talk about what you see by way of content. How are you having to adapt that to reach some of your goals? Have you had to adapt in your content strategy? What's that looking like for you now, especially as we're seeing market conditions change? Have you needed to change at all with your content?
I love this question because I love content. I think all marketers love content. Everybody up here is like, oh yeah. Because we love to tell stories. And I think that's an important part of marketing that kind of Mara was touching on there, is that what you're telling and how you describe your product, classic marketing, classic sales, lead with the need, right? We need to go out there and we need to start speaking to people in the way that they understand. Because I'm not the technical founder of my company. I got somebody else who can go out there and can talk about the tech. I come out there and I say, okay, this is how our tech is actually applicable to your need and your business. And that is a content story. So when you're thinking about how you want to pitch your product and talk about your product, you can have your technical document over here, but over here you need to have your why would anybody want to use this? And who's going to use it, and why would they use it? So I'm a nonprofit. This is what's important to me. This is what I need. Okay, here's my product. This is how you can use my product. And that is a content story. And how you choose to do that story, that changes as technology changes. You can't just put a blog post out there and expect everyone to read it. Let's be honest. You're talking about speaking to 10-year-olds. They're not going to do it, right? So you need to think a little bit broader about what that strategy is, but the content still needs to be there. So whether you're doing it as a video, whether you're doing it as a webinar, whether you're putting it out on, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, I don't know, whatever you want, that content is still the same, and that story still needs to be the same.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm hearing user stories and like beyond the avatar, like really, really drilling down, understanding that audience. Jake, let's talk about this in an interactive way. You're the guy with like the social following here, right? Like you're the resident influencer. What does that look like in a more practical sense? Is your content adapting? What is it looking like for you?
Trends are always changing, so therefore you have to change with the trends. But in general, the way that you should always, and I mean always look at it is how is this going to grab somebody's attention within the first 5 seconds of what I'm doing. No matter what you're doing, people will just scroll like heck, even with what we're doing right now over at Genzio, which for the record, we can chill. If you need some good video content, we got you. But we got our video people right there and right there. We're making content right now. And we're going to splice out the things that are the coolest parts of this speech and of this entire event. And that's what's going to grab people's attention. And that's what's going to put out the absolute best that there is.
Wait a second. Are you saying literally everything is content?
Everything is content.
Wait, I have to point at the camera. You're saying everything is content?
Here's the way that I can put this. If you're walking down a street, you can find something silly to do while walking down the street. Every single place you go, you can always find something.
Awesome. No, I love it. Those are words to live by, I think, in 2022. 2023. Geez, I don't know when we're publishing. Great. So, Mai, as far as the content creation and having to adapt, what is that looking like in your business? And as far as that onboarding, how does content play a role? And are you seeing a need to adapt, to shift or pivot at all?
I actually like the content strategy you were mentioning, right? So I think for a lot of, I want to talk about broadly for, what's going to be relevant for a lot of projects, right? Document, like you were saying, document what you're building, document the challenges, document the obstacles, document why you're building what you're building. So I feel that's one of the best ways that if you don't have the capacity, if you don't have the resources to hire content creators, that's the best way, just document your journey in terms of building. So I think that's one of the fastest and effective way of creating content. But in terms of our company's content strategy, I think going back to what I was mentioning earlier, you have to really have a better understanding of your target audience, right? So what's your target audience on Twitter, right? So they may be more like Web2 focus and with a bit of Web3 knowledge. But what's your community in Discord? What's your community in Telegram group? So every single different communication channel, you have to adapt to different content strategies because there are different target users there. So for us, that we are trying to use more educational content on Twitter, and we are trying to be very developer-focused content on Discord and Telegram group. So I think going back, you have to really think about and how to create that content strategies for your company. Yeah.
That's phenomenal, yeah. So I just really quick before I go to my ear, I'm thinking of some examples of Web2 onboarding, not for Web3, but Web2 onboarding and documentation style content that have just they've gone such a long way over the last several years to make their platforms more accessible. So that's really resonating what you're saying. It takes an extra 15 minutes to go over your copy again and make it more accessible, even if it's just internal documentation. So that's phenomenal right there, Alpha.
Yeah, I'll just ladder out a little bit because I feel that in our world, we've lost the content game in the last 2-3 years because we over-indexed on two things. One, we've over-indexed, especially in the last couple of years, on being the loudest voice and creating a lot of FOMO and riding on the FOMO to try and bring people. And crypto became all about get rich quick, and now it's all about unfortunately, people losing a lot of money. So I feel that content has to shift from very inward focus on product and technology to the value that it really brings and move away from the superficiality of this technology and down into the substance. So there's a fundamental shift we have to bring in the content that brings people back to the core of crypto and the value prop it truly is meant to bring.
Awesome. Well, we've got a couple minutes left here on stage, so let's do this. Just really briefly, Have you seen anything? And you already, I gave everybody here a warning about this, so they've had a heads up. What have you seen by way of unconventional marketing strategies that worked really well the last bull cycle? Something that really caught your attention that for you, a professional in this space in marketing, you said, wow, okay, I just learned something new. What actually got your jaw to drop this last bull cycle? If anything.
I'll go, so you give the time. I think it's virality baked into your product. So when you have an incredible product, you are creating an organic funnel, you're creating an organic loop where the product becomes the strongest marketing channel, your existing users become the strongest marketing channel. So for Kraken, that's been the recipe for growth for us in the last 10 to 11 years, and now intertwining marketing and product to amplify that flywheel.
Awesome.
So, like I was saying, I don't think there's a huge difference between Web 2 and Web 3 marketing, but some of the unconventional and new things I've seen is how products or NFT projects are leveraging tokenomics and leveraging airdrops to really quickly adopt a large community by doing that. So I think that's some of the ways that we couldn't really do in Web 2 marketing, that using tokenomics in a short time to acquire a large community. So I think that's definitely new in Web3. Yeah.
Awesome.
This is going to sound incredibly egotistical. Please do not hate me. But something that I can respond to this is not really much unconventional has really surprised me or shocked me or anything like that. I've followed trends. I've been the unconventional as well as conventional marketer. And so there isn't really very many things that if I haven't already done that I hadn't learned like that. So what you got, miss? Pleasure to have everybody here, by the way.
I think we talk. You talk about the way that you can build a community so quickly, but I think it's almost back to your very typical marketing funnel, right? So you now have the opportunity to build these massive communities very quickly. But what is the better opportunity is then moving that community down where you've got those core users at the bottom who really do care about your product. And you used to spend a lot of time getting those core users. And now we have the opportunity to bring them in a much bigger, faster way. And you still, what you really want are those ones at the bottom of the funnel. But we now have a much faster way to get them, which I think is pretty phenomenal with Web3.
Awesome. Last 30 seconds. Shout out to the audience. What's the best way to find you online? We need 5 seconds each.
5 seconds each. Okay. Well, you can find us at awardpool.com with same Twitter, #awardpool, @awardpool, you name it. Search awardpool, you'll find us.
Awesome. Speak or lose your 5 seconds.
Do I have absolutely any time in order to shout you out, sir?
You do not.
Dang.
I am nobody.
Well, in other words, I'm the CMO of Genzia. We have got your back. I was going to get him 500 followers in a 1-minute span. Figure out how I can do that for you. @GenzioCo on Twitter.
Okay, so if you want to find out my company, it's called Web3 Oz, Web3 Oz for authentication, and my Twitter is babyabe2334. Yeah, thank you.
And I work for Kraken. If you guys don't already know, check out kraken.com or please download the app from the App Store.
Awesome. Round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much.